Hello everyone and welcome to the lecture on AWS Code Catalyst. So this lecture will contain all these topics. What is Amazon Code Catalyst? What can I do with Code Catalyst? AWS Builder ID spaces in Code Catalyst, projects, blueprints, account connections, VPC connections, AWS Builder ID, user profiles in Code Catalyst, source repositories, commits, dev environments, workflows, actions, issues, personal access tokens, personal connections and roles. So what is Amazon Code Catalyst? Amazon Code Catalyst is an integrated service designed for software development teams who are adopting continuous integration and continuous deployment practices into their software development process. It aims to be an all-in-one tool for software development. Code Catalyst provides a comprehensive set of tools for every stage of the software development lifecycle. This includes tools for planning work, collaborating on code, building, testing, and deploying applications, all within a continuous integration, continuous delivery framework. You can integrate your AWS resources with your Code Catalyst projects by connecting your AWS accounts to your Code Catalyst space. Spaces and projects. So in Code Catalyst, you first create a space to represent your organization, department, or team. Within these spaces, you can create projects that house all the necessary resources to support your development teams and tasks. Resources in Code Catalyst are organized within projects, which in turn are located within spaces. To help teams start new projects quickly, Code Catalyst offers project blueprints. These blueprints are templates that include pre-configured resources such as a source repository with sample code, automated build scripts, deployment actions, and even virtual servers or serverless resource and resource configurations depending on the blueprint. So what can I do with Code Catalyst? So first, Code Catalyst enables teams to work together efficiently on code. This includes using features like branches for parallel development, merging code changes, managing code reviews with pull request, and adding comments directly in the source code. You can automate your application's build, test, and deployment processes using Code Catalyst workflows. These workflows support continuous integration and continuous delivery practices, ensuring consistent and reliable software releases. Workflows can be triggered manually or automatically based on events like code commits or pull request updates. Code Catalyst provides issue tracking tools to help teams organize and prioritize their work. Issues can be used to create and manage backlogs of tasks and features. Boards offer a visual way to monitor the status of tasks as they progress through the different stages, helping in effective task management and project tracking. You can stay informed about your team's progress and the health of your resources with Code Catalyst monitoring and notification features. You can monitor team activity and status of your resources within the platform. You can configure notifications to receive timely updates about important changes and events. In Code Catalyst, so first is spaces. So in Code Catalyst spaces, access is controlled through the invitations. The space administrator is responsible for inviting users to join, and this is done by sending individual invitation emails directly from the members page within Code Catalyst. Users who receive an invitation or choose to sign up for Code Catalyst are required to create their own AWS Builder ID. This AWS Builder ID acts as a personal account for accessing AWS Builder services including Code Catalyst. The AWS Builder ID is not only used for authentication but also for profile management. Users manage their profile information directly within the AWS Builder ID settings. This profile information, such as the username and other details, is then displayed in the user settings within Code Catalyst. So projects. A project in Code Catalyst serves as a central hub for collaborative efforts. It is designed to support development teams in their various tasks, providing structured environment to work together. Once you have set up a project, you gain the flexibility to customize it to your team's needs. This includes the ability to add, update, remove users, manage the resources associated with the project, and personalize your project dashboard for the efficient workflow. Projects in Code Catalyst enable you to keep an eye on how your team's work is progressing. This monitoring capability helps in understanding the current status of tasks and overall project momentum. Within a single Code Catalyst space, you are not limited to just one project. You can have multiple projects, allowing you to organize different streams of work, manage various teams, or handle different initiatives all within the same space. So next is blueprints. A blueprint in Code Catalyst acts as a project synthesizer. It automates the creation of essential application support files and software dependencies. It also handles the initial setup of your Code Catalyst project directly within the console, streamlining the project creation process. Code Catalyst offers a selection of blueprints, each representing a different project type. You can choose a blueprint that best fits your needs, and before finalizing, you can view the README file associated with the blueprint to understand its specifics and preview the project repository structure and AWS resources that will be automatically generated for you. Periodic synthesis. So blueprints are designed for continuous project evolution. You can periodically synthesize your projects to the chosen blueprint. This process updates your project files, such as keeping software dependencies up to date, and regenerates any necessary resources, ensuring your project stays current with the best practices and latest configurations. So Code Catalyst projects leverage a tool called as Progen for synthesis. Progen is responsible for syncing the latest project updates from the blueprint and automatically generating various support files. These files can include crucial configuration files like package.json for Node.js projects, make files for build automation, ESLint configuration for code linting, and many more, depending on the specific application type and programming language that you are using. Project blueprints are capable of generating files that facilitate the deployment and management of AWS resources. This includes generating files that are compatible with AWS Cloud Development Kit CDK constructs, AWS CloudFormation templates for infrastructure as code, and AWS Server Application Model SAM templates for serverless application, making it easier to integrate your project with the AWS ecosystem. Next is account connections. An account connection in Code Catalyst establishes a link between your Code Catalyst space and your AWS account. Once this connection is set up, it effectively makes your AWS account accessible and available for use within the Code Catalyst space. To enable Code Catalyst to interact with and manage resources within your AWS account, you can add IAM roles to Code Catalyst. These IAM roles grant Code Catalyst the necessary permissions to access and utilize services and resources in your AWS environment. These roles are also leveraged by your Code Catalyst workflow actions, which allows automated processes to interact with your AWS account securely. So, project restricted connections. For enhanced security and control, Code Catalyst offers project restricted account connections. By enabling this feature, you can limit which projects and resources within your space have access to specific AWS accounts. These project restricted connections ensure that only designated projects can utilize the connected AWS accounts, providing a way to isolate and restrict the use of AWS resources for integrated services on a per project basis. For instance, an AWS account used for deployment workflows or VPC connections in certain projects can be exclusively tied to those projects through a project restricted account connection. Next is VPC connections. A VPC connection in Code Catalyst is a specific resource within the platform. Its primary purpose is to hold all the necessary configurations that enable your workflows to securely access virtual private cloud. Space administrators are responsible for setting up VPC connections. They can add these connections through Amazon Code Catalyst console, making it a centralized task performed on behalf of all space members. By setting up a VPC connection, space members gain the capability to run workflow actions and create dev environments that can interact with resources located within the associated VPC. This connection ensures that all access adheres to defined network rules and security protocols, providing a secure pathway to VPC resources. AWS Builder ID. An Builder ID is a personal identity you can use to sign up and sign in to Code Catalyst and other participating applications. It is not the same as an AWS account. Your AWS Builder ID manages metadata such as user alias and email address. Your AWS Builder ID is a unique identity that supports users across all spaces in Code Catalyst. User profiles in Code Catalyst. You access your Code Catalyst user profiles by choosing the profile option from the drop-down under your login initials on any page in Code Catalyst. You can create personal access tokens from your profile page, but you can only view or delete personal access tokens using the CLI. Your username is the alias you choose when you have signed up. You cannot change your username. To view the profile page for another Code Catalyst user, you can go to the Members tab for your project and choose the appropriate user. You access your AWS Builder ID by viewing your Code Catalyst profile and then choosing to go to AWS Builder ID. You will be redirected to your AWS Builder ID profile page. Your profile's full name, email address, and password are managed by your AWS Builder ID. You can edit that information using the AWS Builder ID page. And when you are ready to set up MFA to use an authenticated application for signing in, you will use the AWS Builder ID page. Okay, source repository. A source repository is where you securely store code and files for your product. It also stores the version history of your files. By default, a source repository is shared with other users in your Code Catalyst project. You can have more than one source repository for a project. You can create source repository for projects in Code Catalyst, or you can choose to link an existing source repository hosted by another service if that service is supported by an installed extension. For example, you can link a GitHub repository to a project after you install the GitHub repositories extension. Source repositories are also where configuration information is stored for your Code Catalyst project, such as the configuration file that defines the attributes and actions of your CI/CD workflow. If you create your project using a blueprint, a source repository will be created with project configuration information stored inside it. If you create an empty project, you must create a source repository before you can create resources that require configuration information such as workflows. Commits. A commit is a change to a file or set of files. In Amazon Code Catalyst console, a commit saves your changes and pushes them to a source repository. The commit includes information about the change, including the identity of the user who made the change, the time and date of the change, the commit title, and any message included about the change. In the context of a source repository in Code Catalyst, commits are snapshots of the changes to the contents of your repository. Every time a user commits and pushes a change, Code Catalyst saves information that includes who committed the change, the date and time of the commit, and the changes made as part of the commit. You can also add Git tags to commits to help identify specific commits. Okay, dev environments. A dev environment is a cloud-based development environment that you can use in Code Catalyst to quickly work on the code stored in the source repository of your project. The project tools and application libraries included in your dev environment are defined by a dev file in the source repository of your project. If you do not have a dev file in your source repository, a default dev file will be applied automatically. The default dev file includes tools for the most frequently used programming languages and frameworks. By default, dev environment is configured to have a 2-core processor and 4 GB of RAM and 16 GB of persistent storage. Workflows. A workflow is an automated procedure that describes how to build, test, and deploy your code as part of continuous integration and continuous delivery system. A workflow defines a series of steps or actions to take during a workflow run. A workflow also defines the events or triggers that cause the workflow to start. To set up a workflow, you create a workflow definition file using the Code Catalyst console visual or YAML editor. Actions. An action is the main building block of a workflow and defines a logical unit of work or task to perform during a workflow run. Typically, a workflow includes multiple actions that run sequentially or in parallel depending on how you have configured them. Next is issues. An issue is a record that tracks the work related to your product. You can create an issue for a feature, a task, a bug, or any other body of work related to your product. If you are using agile development, an issue can also describe an epic or user story. Personal access tokens. A personal access token is similar to a password. It is associated with your user identity for use across all spaces and products in Code Catalyst. You use PATs to access Code Catalyst resources that include integrated development environments and Git-based source repositories. Paths represent you in Code Catalyst and you can manage them in your user settings. A user can have more than one personal access token. Personal access tokens only display once. As a best practice, be sure to store them securely on your local computer. By default, personal access tokens expire after 1 year. Personal connections. A personal connection is an authorization between your Code Catalyst identity and your external source provider such as GitHub. You use personal connections to allow a Code Catalyst user to add third-party source repositories. For example, you can connect to a GitHub repository to a Code Catalyst space. An installed connector application is installed in the GitHub account for use with repositories designated by the account owner. You can create one personal connection and one user identity, which is Code Catalyst alias, across all spaces for a specific provider type, such as GitHub. Personal connections are either associated with your AWS Builder ID or your SSO user. Next is roles. A role defines a user's access to the resources for a product or a space and which actions that user can take. You choose the role for a user when you invite them to a product. There are space level roles and product level roles in the Code Catalyst. A user with an administrative role at the correct level can change assigned roles. For example, a user with the product administrator role for a product has the full control over that product and can change the roles of users in that product. And that's all. Thanks for watching.